Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Dan and Joe Sports Show. As always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.
All right, we just got done doing a locker room talk based on McDonald's removing all of their 840 restaurants from Russia that where Joe and I listed if we were Russian citizens, things would be upset American companies pulling out of Russia that might cause us to rethink what's going on with the war in Ukraine. And that led us to a real story here going on in the sports world that is it's a big deal, and it's something that I think the American government really needs to do because it could be a huge win for the Biden administration if they can get something done on it. And this, of course, is the arrest and detainment of Brittany Griner. Of course, Brittany Griner is maybe, I mean, wouldn't you say, Joe, that she's probably the most well-known college women's basketball player ever from her time at Baylor?
She's up there with like Diana Taurasi, but like Griner was just such, a freak of nature with her height and athleticism.
Right. I mean, I just remember her, her domination is something that I don't know. Maybe when I was a kid, like Shamika Holdsclaw, when she was with Tennessee, had that kind of realm. But as my adulthood, I feel like she's been probably the most famous women's college basketball player. And of course,
Yeah.
she's gone on to have a great career in the WNBA as well. And what's happened, and it's kind of interesting because not only does it play into Russian U.S. Foreign affairs, it also plays into a little bit of the inequities between male and female sports. The reason that Brittany Griner was even going to Russia when she was detained is because she was playing Russian league basketball in the off season. And the reason she did this, Joe, is because she got paid more to play women's professional basketball in Russia than she does in the U.S., which, I mean, in my mind, that's a huge indictment on the system we have right now when someone that's as huge of a star as Brittany Griner has to go play basketball in Europe in order to make more money than she does here.
No, that's a compelling point. And she's definitely the most dominating player I've probably seen, in my lifetime for women's college sports, just the success she had leading Baylor to a national championship. And yeah, I mean, if she were playing, in male sports, she definitely wouldn't have to go overseas to get paid and to train. And so, yeah, that definitely speaks volumes to that. And, it's a story to monitor. When you see a celebrity like that in the sports world who is involved in what is going on with the tragedy of everything, it really, I think, makes it come more to life even to a lot of Americans.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's something that can cast a light on what's going on to more people than maybe who already pay attention to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. Because you think about it, the allegations of it is apparently that she supposedly had hashish oil
Yeah.
that they found on her when she was coming into the country, and that that they took her in February is what they say. It doesn't even give like a specific date. I mean, you have no idea, and they won't say where she is. You don't know how long she's been locked up. And I mean, to me, it just seems like I'm very suspicious of the nature of the charges of it to begin with. And I kind of feel like it may have been that somebody recognized who she was and they decided to maybe take a political prisoner. I don't know if this is true. I mean, it just seems like it's a big possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know. And like I said, it makes it more real because it's a fellow American. You worry about her, and what she's going through. And you're right. Like, you just got to think that there's some questionable, legal or lack thereof things going on.
Right. And then one of the most, things that really like makes it suspicious and, really makes me worried for her is the fact that Russia has very strict LGBTQ laws there. And it's definitely not a place where you feel very safe if you're someone that, lives an alternative lifestyle. And of course, she's well known for she's married to a woman, and it's not a great place for her to be with that background. And I'm sure that may have played into it too. So definitely something that, there's a lot of reasons why they need to bring her back. And I hope they do. And I hope they do it quickly because she's a great athlete, and we don't want her to be caught up in something that really, doesn't have anything to do with her.
Right. Definitely want to get her home, and hopefully they'll be working hard to make that happen as soon as possible.
We do. And I know her wife has contacted Biden's administration and really tried to push it. And I hope that this is something that, this could be something that you can make that's a small win that could, lead to other things and what we have going on right now, which is a significant issue for this world.
Right. No, absolutely.
All right, Joe, and moving on to things that are way less significant than Brittany Griner and her safety and, and jailing in Russia. Let's move on to something that's a little bit lighter, and that's Russell Wilson finally getting out of Seattle. I'm sure there were times where Russell Wilson felt like he was in jail when he was just getting nailed all the time by defensive linemen that were getting through his porous offensive line with the Seattle Seahawks, and how he was running for safety all the time, never was very comfortable in the pocket. So I'm sure he's very happy to finally be gone from there. This was a little bit surprising, Joe, because I thought the Broncos were going to get Aaron Rodgers. It seems like I've been hearing about this for a couple of years, and you thought that was going to be their big move. But then they went out and got Russell Wilson and 2 first-round draft picks in a row, and then 2 second-round draft picks in a row. And then I think, and that was the deal they got, along with, didn't they also trade, I think they traded
Drew Lock.
In a tight end. The tight end from Missouri that I can't pronounce his name is like Ugababaway or something like that.
Yeah, I think they got 3 skill players, including Lock and the tight end. And they get that king's ransom of draft picks, which is a lot more than the Lions got for Stafford from the Rams. I don't think the Lions got the 2 second-round picks. They just got the first-round picks for Stafford.
Yeah, that'd be a good pronunciation to look up, Joe, that tight end's name. I think his last name is much more difficult to say even than Tua's last name is.
Yeah. And then there was another tight end. His name, I think, is it Noah Fant or Noah Font?
Yeah, Noah Fant, too. I think he also was put in that trade. So, I think this is one that works out well for both parties. Obviously, the Broncos have been so solid in defense the last few years, but have just been so lacking at the quarterback position. And they've actually upgraded their wide receiver talent. They have Jerry Jeudy now. And they got a solid running back too. So this is a time where you bring in someone like Russell Wilson. I saw that the Broncos went from something like the 16th best chances to win the Super Bowl all the way to number 4, I think. I think now the only teams that have a better chance to win the Super Bowl are the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Packers. And so now the Broncos are all the way up to 4th best odds to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're hoping, this works out for them. We've seen the last 2 seasons, the team that won the Super Bowl, somebody that went out and signed or traded for, a all-star quarterback with Brady and Stafford. And I think that if you're the Broncos, you definitely understand why they did this. If you're Russell Wilson, though, I'm a little bit, if I was him, I don't know if this would be my number 1 landing spot. And just because, you might be a Super Bowl contender, but you're not even the favorite in your own division. You got to deal with the Chiefs. You got to deal with the Chargers. You got to deal with the Raiders who made the playoffs this year. So there's a lot of obstacles there. And I do think that it's definitely a huge sacrifice, Dan, to give up so much of your future, with not just the first-round picks, but the second-round picks. You're not going to have any type of farm system for the conceivable future. And so you only got Wilson, I think, in 1 other player. So that is a hefty price to pay given the division that you're in. And so very interested to see how this goes. From the Seattle standpoint, though, to me, this is as good of a package as you could have ever dreamed of for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Seahawks, if you were going to get rid of Russell Wilson, they got a solid deal. Because you're right, it's not just the first-round draft picks, it's the second-round draft picks, because you get a lot of great players in the second round. And a lot of times they end up doing better than your first-round draft picks. And you pair that, and not only do you have these options ahead of you to get these players that you didn't have before, you also have so much trade capital when you want to move up and you see somebody that's all of a sudden that's there, and you can't believe that he's there. You have stockpiles of draft picks that you can trade away for the Seahawks. So, they're in really good position right now based off that. And obviously Drew Lock he'd be a good backup for you. You can go out now and with what you have available, try and get another quarterback, try and get somebody in the draft, and you have a serviceable backup. So I think it's a solid trade for him. And I definitely think that, Pete Carroll was looking at this along with the GMs and said, yes, Russell Wilson's top 5 quarterback in the league, and we don't want to lose him. But if he's not happy here, and he's been very clear about that, then let's go ahead and build a team from the ground up. And I think they may ultimately come out on the better end of this deal.
I think so. I think so. And it's also interesting to me that Wilson will be the first quarterback ever to start for a team that he defeated in the Super Bowl with his, championship against the Broncos back in 2013.
And not only beating, just like a killing. That was one of the biggest beatdowns I've ever seen in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was such a substantial beatdown and a huge victory there for the Seahawks. And, they never were the same team after that loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl in 2014. And I think that that's a lot of the reasons why Wilson wanted to finally leave, is his frustration with him, not building around him as much as he wanted to the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it finally started getting a little bit of wide receiver talent. Of course, they brought in DK Metcalf. They had Tyler Lockett for a while. But, really between getting Tyler Lockett, who's a really good slot receiver, they never really went out and got the excellent big man until, a couple of years ago when they got Metcalf.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good. There's been other, programs that haven't had as good a wide receivers, but they never helped him out on the offensive line. I mean, he's been so bad for 5 years, like struggling with offensive linemen. And yeah, he's a mobile quarterback, so he's able to get away from that stuff. That still puts a wear on you. And it's probably shortened his career a little bit.
Yes, and they also found themselves squarely at fourth in the division the last couple of years too. Like the other three teams were just a lot better than them.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think this is it's a good move for him too. But, if I were him, I don't know that would have been my first landing place either. To be honest, if I were Russell Wilson, I might have waited back a little bit and let the Packers go ahead and trade Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos and maybe look at going to the Packers. Because one thing the Packers have not had issues with, their offensive line is perfectly fine. They just haven't really had a whole lot outside of Devontae Adams. But, hey, suddenly Russell Wilson has Devontae Adams. He's got a pretty good running attack. That would be suddenly you're in a Super Bowl contention kind of area. And I think that would have been the way I would have played that if I'd been Russell Wilson.
I think so. Like if I'm him, I definitely want to stay in the NFC, just go to a different division. Like I don't want to be in the AFC really, because not only is the AFC West so hard, but just the AFC in general has so many good young quarterbacks. But like the Packers would have been a good spot in the NFC. I also think the Buccaneers would have been a good fit for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, talk about just go ahead and replacing Tom Brady after he won a Super Bowl, had another great playoff year right after that. It's a ready-made program right now, so that would have been a good one. Or, hey, you know what? You don't have a lot of weapons, but you'd have a great defense, and you do have a good offensive line. He could have gone to the Saints.
Oh, the Saints. That was my number one option. I wanted Russell Wilson more than anybody else. So that was the disappointing thing for me when I finally saw, that he was going to the Broncos, and any glimmer of that dream being a reality was, thrown out the door.
Well, Joe, you and I have been Saints fans for a very long time. There's been one time in our entire history that we've gone out and gotten a real playmaker off the free agent market, or there's someone that's looking to be traded that was a quarterback, and it was Drew Brees. And that's it. We never got anybody else.
And that kind of fell into our lap, because the Dolphins didn't want him.
Well, that was only because Nick Saban didn't think his shoulder was gonna work right.
Right. So nobody else wanted him. So yeah, that you can't even give him, unfortunately, credit probably for that.
Exactly. They just got lucky on that
one. Exactly.
So yes, I yet again, I don't expect that. I've seen things saying the Saints will get Matt Corral in the draft, but I'm not going to believe it till I see it, because they never do anything in the draft. Or sometimes the free agent market, they'll do things all right, but when it comes to getting those big name players in the draft, I always assume they're not going to do it.
I mean, I hate to say it, but the last article I saw some speculation about Jimmy Garoppolo to the Saints.
Oh man. Well, I will say that that will make my wife happy. She thinks that Jimmy Garoppolo is quite good looking. But that's the only, the only benefit I can see on that. But all right. But, speaking of free agent moves in the quarterback department, maybe not just beautiful Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Saints, there also is Carson Wentz making another move. Fresh off being traded from the 40, and first off being traded from the Eagles to the Colts. It seemed like for most of the season, things were going pretty good for the Colts. Then all of a sudden they lost in the last two games, including Joe. And I think this was the real death knell for Carson Wentz and the Colts, losing the last game of the season to an Urban Meyer fired Jaguars team. And when they had a chance to go to the playoffs, and all they had to do was beat the Jags, and they couldn't do it. And then boom, Indianapolis goes from winning their division to not even making playoffs. And now Carson Wentz is going to the Washington Commanders. At least he's going to a team that has a name now. I mean, I guess at least you get to know that you're a part of a team that's a name team. You're not on the Washington football team. You're not playing soccer anymore. You're on the Washington Commanders, which, by the way, Joe, still kind of a lame name.
Yeah, I was glad to see them finally pick a name, but no, that was not my first choice either. But yeah, I do think, though, that it's potentially a pretty good landing spot for him. In fact, I was thinking in the offseason early on that this is a kind of a sleeper good landing spot for a lot of quarterbacks that are on the market, because when you go to Washington, you go to a division in the NFC East that is just so winnable every year. Like, it's just anybody's division to win. And I think that you have a great defense if Chase Young can hopefully come back healthy and Montez Sweat. And you have a good running game with Antonio Gibson. And I still think that Ron Rivera is an exceptional football coach. And so I do think this is not a bad place for Carson Wentz.
That's true. Terry McLaurin's a solid wide receiver. So there's definitely some pieces there. And, they won a terrible team last year with very subpar quarterback play from Taylor Heineke, who's a guy who, doesn't have a whole lot of talent, but tried really hard. He's a guy that you wanted to root for, but you could see that probably didn't really have it and was a stopgap. So you're right. I mean, I think that this is not a terrible landing spot for him. And in some ways, at least from a talent perspective on offense, he probably got a little bit more talent on offense with Washington than he did with the Colts. Now, you don't have the same level of running back. I'm not going to put Antonio Gibson at the same level as Jonathan Taylor. But I think on the wide receiver side of the things, you probably have better receivers with, I keep wanting to say the Redskins, the Commanders, than you do with the Colts.
Yeah, they're really, in my opinion, a good quarterback away from being a playoff team.
Yeah, absolutely, especially since you think about the Eagles. They didn't make any progress under Jalen Hurts in their second year. The Cowboys, for some reason, held on to Mike McCarthy. I have no idea why. And they're still going to, with having Mike McCarthy still there and not elevating their defensive coordinator to head coach, I think that they're still going to not fulfill expectations. And suddenly that's a winnable division. Yeah,
and the Cowboys are going to lose reportedly Amari Cooper too.
Yeah, that's right. So definitely high times for the Commanders. All right, Joe, when we come back, we're going to look into some college stories that we have. We're going to start off with Coach K's farewell. Was not quite the farewell that he wanted. Some might say it was a very sad farewell. And with that being said, I hope you don't feel too sad about all the stories that we've said. You want to tune in to our next episode that we got when we talk some college hoops. And definitely make sure and check out all of our old YouTube videos and then all of our episodes on Spotify. And then, of course, you can follow us on Facebook and like our Twitter handle at DJ Sports Show. And as always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.